Well, a bit similar to Wally there. We had drought after the war, or just towards the end of the war. There'd been a drought down in the Mallee over Western Australia where I come from, and most of the sheep had died off and stuff like that. There wasn't much work around, and a group came around looking for volunteers to join the army. This was in 1950, and they wanted somebody to join the K-Force, what they call K-Force. Anyway, I signed up and went down to Karrakatta, and they told me there that I couldn't join K-Force because I was underage. I was 19 at the time, and I had to be at least 20 or like a returned serviceman. So they said, you'll have to sign on for the regular army. So I signed up for 6 years. Like Wally, I went across to Puckapunyal and then up to Korea in May 51. There's a lot of good memories from the mates of mine, and there's some of the funny things that happened, some really funny things. Some of the scariest things that happened to me were just, like one night this plane was coming over and it dropped something, and all the boys were singing out, what was that, what was that? And I said, I don't know, but keep your head down, because it came fluttering down this thing, and geez, it might be a delayed action bomb or something. And anyway, next morning I sneaked down the hill to check it out, and there was a bundle of these Dodgers that they used to drop to tell the North or the Chinese to surrender, like surrender leaflets, and our blokes had dropped it on us instead of the Chinese. That was pretty funny. But to go back again and see how well it's, and I was back there last year, and to see how well the south has gone compared to the north, it's just like it makes it all worthwhile. It makes you feel better. The artillery, like, pretty hard to dodge it, because you dig a hole as quick as you could. But when we took a lot of those hills, the Chinese already had good bunkers and core trenches and stuff like that, communication trenches, some of the covered bunkers and all that. But they were mostly on the south side there, because they were facing us there. But when we got around the forward slopes, they had like core trenches and little pits around there, but they weren't quite as good. But they'd organised their artillery quite well. And it was all set up by then, because it was getting fairly static. So they had all their artillery and mortars.
Mortars were the worst.
So,
the mortars were the worst.
They had a better chance of dropping in your tent trench, because they came virtually straight down.
Straight in you.
And but the artillery there wasn't a lot of fun either.
The battalion had been in action intensively, and we were moved to a rear area to get reinforcements for the men to have a little bit of a rest, because some of them were knocked about and hadn't had anything much to eat and drink, and a few wounds to be fixed. And my boss said to me, Perkins, he says, unload that vehicle, and he says, you are going down south to a British engineer unit, which was probably 100 miles south. And I says, oh, you beaut, I'll have a bath when I get down there, shower and something to eat, and maybe get some new clothes if I can talk my way into it. Well, this is all right. Well, the roads there are very narrow, and they're dirt roads, and I suppose I got down there, it might have been 10 miles, and the road's blocked because there was American tanks that came in out of the side and climbing up onto the road. One of them had turned over and had blocked the road, and they were waiting for a recovery vehicle to come. So there was a whole line of vehicles there stopped, and I was sitting in this Jeep, nothing to do, and all of a sudden there, over on the side there was the remains of a bombed out house, a mud brick house. There's a woman there leaning up against it, and she was screaming and yelling, but we were used to that sort of thing because it was very tough on the civilians. And I tried to ignore it, and all of a sudden there was a little kiddie came along, I suppose, I don't know, might have been 3 or 4 years of age, screaming, and come over to me and pulled at my sleeve. Come. I couldn't understand what I was saying. The woman there was beckoning to me to come, and I thought, this could be a trap, be careful. At any rate, the curiosity got the better of me, so I went over to see this, what it was. I was very cautious, and this woman, I noticed, she was trying to give birth to a baby. And of course, she was screaming, and the young kiddie was pulling at me, so I went right over to her and looked around. Everything looked safe, and this woman there, I couldn't understand her, but she was beckoning to me to sort of what I interpreted as pull the baby, because it was there, the head was half out, and of course she was screaming, and there she was in real trouble. There was blood, and she had torn herself a bit, and so anyway, my hands, I looked at my hands, and they weren't too clean because we didn't have any bathing facilities there. So I thought, well, the woman's going to die anyway, and the baby will die under these circumstances. So I opened this old lady's legs, and I reached down and tried to move the little bit of the head that was coming out, and eventually I worked my fingers down inside there, and I had a grip on the head. So she was screaming. I'll never forget those screams. So I pulled and twisted a bit, and gradually got my fingers down under what was apparently the baby's chin, and pulled it, and I thought, here goes, because they were honking me over the side to get moving, So I pulled, and the baby came, and I got covered with all sorts of things, and I thought, oh, the baby's out. What do I do? Do I just throw it down and run? But no, I held the baby up. I didn't know much about this, but previously in civilian life, I'd been up on a farm, and I'd helped a farmer pull lambs from ewes, that were in trouble. So, anyway, I had a little bit of an idea. So I hung the baby up by its legs. What do? I didn't know that you smacked them on the bottom. So I shook it, and the baby it screamed and yelled. I was pretty proud of that. So I thought, what do I do? And I knew the cord had to be cut, so I laid the baby down on the woman's body, and I ran over to the Jeep. I pulled the bootlace out of my spare shoes, out of spare boots, and I got my knife, which I always carried a knife. It was actually a bayonet knife, and I raced over, and I tied the cord, and I slashed through the cord, and I got from my bag in the Jeep, I got my towel, my only one and only towel, and that wasn't too clean. I wrapped the baby in that and gave it to the mother, and she was very soiled and dirty, so I had a singlet there. I wiped her and cleaned her a bit and threw the singlet down, and I had nothing to give her, so I went over to the Jeep and had a look, and I had a packet of these hard biscuits. We used to call them dog biscuits. And I had in my water bottle about an inch of water. So I took them over, gave her the biscuits, and she had a little bowl there. I emptied my water bottle and gave her what I could, and I was getting shouted at, come on, move this vehicle, because the military police were there saying, move this vehicle. I did. Anyway, we got a couple of miles down the road, and there was a stoppage again. And the drivers that had seen what I'd done all gathered around and congratulated me, and I got all the pats on the back. But I was very proud of, hopefully, saving the lady's life and the baby too. And throughout the years, it's very vivid to me, and I'll never forget those screams, But I did. This was just a little bit of the things that happened on the side. It wasn't planned, it was just something that
tracked the kid down.
Yeah, and I've often worried and prayed that the baby did survive, and the mother too, because they had nothing, absolutely nothing. No food, no clothing, no shelter, because they'd been just shot to pieces. But anyway, that's just a little bit of a story of the side issues that happen on these things.